Living Stereo fans, I have a treat for you today, a video you don't want to miss. This is about LSC 2419 Dvořák Slavonic Dances. I have 3 records here. I have a 1S Shaded Dog, I have the Classic Records version, and the Victrola, Plum Label. So I will talk about all the differences I heard between them. This is a very interesting record because up until this point, I have been covering the RCA Living Stereo series in conjunction with Analog Productions reissues. So as I've collected the Analog Productions reissues, I compare them to the classic records, if available, the original pressings, whatever I have, the Victrola, sometimes even a tape. But in this case, Analog Productions did not do this title. Classic Records did. And for that reason, this is a little bit of a different video. I'm going to bring in some information from the RCA Bible about this, and it may hold a key to why Chad Kassem didn't choose this title for reissue in his series. Before I get started, I wanted to guide you to a guide to collecting RCA Living Stereo. It is one of the videos that I've done in recent months that I am very proud of. And I think you can get a lot of information from it if you check it out. It is called The Guide to Collecting RCA Living Stereo. And in it, I go into how to identify the pressings, how to recognize the labels. I show all the different labels. I talk about the pressing plants. Virtually everything you need to know about collecting RCA Living Stereo is in that video. So if you haven't seen it yet, please watch that after this video. All right, let's get into this. Oh, before I get started, if you like this kind of content, please hit the like button. Okay, hit the like button. That'll give me a sign that you want to see more of this type of content. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Okay, let's get on to this. My 1S pressing has a very interesting lineage. It was gifted to me by a dear friend of the channel, and its lineage goes back further than him. I think it's very interesting that these records that were in collections of collectors that were passionate about this, when it came time that they no longer needed them, they passed them to another passionate collector that loved this type of music and this material, and these records in particular. And it goes on. Each time it gets passed to another person that will love these records, will talk about these records, will share these records with other people. And I think that's what that person had in mind when he gave me this 1S pressing. I treasure it. It is a beautiful, beautiful copy. 1S Indianapolis pressing. I also have the Classic Records edition, mastered by Bernie Grundman. And I have the Victrola. So let's not have these fall over. First, I want to discuss why this may not have been reissued by Analog Productions. I know that Chad likes to go for 10++. If you look at the titles that he reissued, he relies on his own intuition and knowledge, of course. He used to sell these records when he was doing original pressing sales. So he knows these records inside and out. And he also knows the resources that have been published about them, namely the RCA Bible and the Golden Age of Collecting RCA Living Stereo by Mitchell. So these two guides give you a very good indication of what these writers considered 10++ records. And it's interesting because even though Classic reissued this record, it only gets a 10+. Now that's not a really bad rating, but it is something to consider when you're reissuing records, and it's a little bit on the line. You want to make sure you're getting the 10++. It also might be because he only did 12 Decca titles, and this title is from the arrangement that RCA had with Decca. So there might have been licensing issues. There might have been a number of reasons why he chose not to do this one, at least at this time. I am just saying that because we all pray that Chad will someday do another series of RCA Living Stereo titles. I have no information about that, but it certainly would be nice to have all the titles that were done by Classic that were not done by Analog Productions in new editions. I think that would be wonderful. So let's get on to what Valin says about this. And it's very interesting. He references Sid Marks. Of course, Sid Marks did his groundbreaking coverage of RCA Living Stereo in the Absolute Sound. So he says, in spite of Sid Marks' dismissal of this disc, I still like it. It is dark and somewhat raucous, and the low end smacks of other Kenneth Wilkinson recordings, which is to say it is murky throughout. Strings, cellos, winds, and brass, however, are so winningly sweet, lively, and detailed that I am willing to overlook the dark grumbling of the basses and timps, which spend the entire disc trying to clear their throats and not succeeding. I thought that was so funny. He's very witty. I love the way he writes in here. He says the performances are excellent, but not quite as good as my favorite Zell, Columbia, ignoring the fact that there is an intermittent hole in the middle of the stage. Sid Mark complains that the strings are set too far over to the left. It's funny how he misdiagnoses a slight imaging problem on this record and misses the Grand Canyon in the center of many of those Goulds that he loves so dearly. So he was poking a little fun at Sid Marks on that. Be that as it may, there are some problems with this recording, and that may be another reason, but it does display a lot of the hallmarks of an excellent Kenneth Wilkinson recording. Beautiful sense of space, lovely detail, excellent separation, nicely controlled climaxes that have power. There is an ebb and flow about it that feels like being in the concert hall. And overall, it's a beautiful, grand kind of sound. I think it's great. Is it the best of Kenneth Wilkinson's recordings? Maybe not, but it's definitely one worth having. But which version to have? Well, let's talk about the classic. The classics, when they came out, received some criticism. And most of the criticism was they were too bright. Okay? So I was very excited when they were coming out. But in a conversation I had with Chad Kassem about this, he mentioned that audiophiles were not ready for the classic records. They were so used to their to-be warm, somewhat veiled originals that the classics were so vibrant and clear and closer to the tape that they immediately wrote them off as, too bright or too hot, too revealing, or whatever their criticism was. And he felt they were misguided. I think there's a reappraisal going on of the classic records, Bernie Grundman masterings. I have them all. I think they're wonderful, but there are some exceptions. And I think this is one exception. Yeah, the classic, now the one I have here is the Alto import. They had an arrangement with Alto Analog in Germany. They did some export copies, I guess, or import copies. I'm always confused about that whole story. But they did not use the dog on these copies. They are the same records, though. So they have a plain red label like that. The copies usually had a sticker on the front, which most people peeled off because it was so damn ugly. This one has a little sticker in the back. This classic never floated my boat. I thought it had some good things about it, the clarity, the lower noise floor, usually a better sense of separation, a bit more dynamic, a bit lower end weight. However, God bless Bernie Grundman. I love Bernie Grundman's work, but something went awry here, I think. It just is so hot that the climaxes are a little annoying, to put it mildly. When you hear the original or the Victrola after that, you're like, oh, okay, that's beautiful. I wouldn't say Bernie's is beautiful. I would say it's ruthlessly revealing, a little hot, a little bright, a little dry, and missing the magic living stereo sound. It's okay. If you don't have another copy, it's okay. But I think in this case, it just went a little too far, I guess. I don't know really the reasons why, because Bernie Grundman has excellent taste, and most of the RCA Living Stereos are wonderful. This one just, perhaps it's a tape or whatever. I don't really know. But in a conversation with my esteemed colleague and publisher at Audiophile, Anthony Kershaw, he basically said the same thing, that once I hear the 1S, you're going to realize the difference. Well, I was able to hear the 1S, and he was right. He was right. The 1S has the typical hallmarks of the living stereo sound. Warm, lush, detailed, spacious, airy, beautiful string tone, beautiful brass, beautiful woodwinds, never going overboard, never being annoying, never giving you the feeling like this is a little too much. It's always, I want to hear more. And you leave the record on and you flip it over immediately because it's so enchanting. Really, it is very enchanting. Even though it's missing a plus, it is still a very, very good record. And the 1S pressing is fabulous. It really is good. It is much better than the classic. So I will give it that. However, that record may go for $300. In Jonathan Valin's days, it was $275. So finding a minty original will be costly. And there is no Analog Productions version, and the classic is what it is. So what do? Well, I've had the Plum Label Victrola for a while. I hadn't heard it in comparison with these two pressings, and this was very interesting. This is the Plum Label Victrola. Looks like that. It is a 4S, 1S pressing. You shouldn't pay more than $20 for one of these. Beautiful jacket. I love these jackets too. Well, this, in some ways, I feel like it's pretty much the equal of the 1S. Maybe not quite, but you know, condition is an issue with these records. The 1S is not in perfect shape. I heard them with the Sugar Cube in bypass mode and in correction mode. When I use the Sugar Cube, I use it to reduce the variables of the impressions you get when you're playing a record that has a click or pop. It can change your perception of the mastering, where you're like kind of annoyed, so you're like, it's not as good. The Sugar Cube takes all that out of the equation and leaves the rest of the music intact, which is a valuable tool for a reviewer that's reviewing vintage pressings. So I used the Sugar Cube in my final evaluations of these, and I have to say that this is one of the better Victrolas. It gets you 90% of the way there to the 1S at a very, very affordable price. has excellent surfaces. It has low tape hiss. It has all the beauty and magic of the 1S. Really, it was very, very hard to find differences among the two. I think the 1S may have a bit more transparency overall, a little bit more glow, but really it's quite close. And if you are interested in this beautiful music, the Victrola pressing is an absolute bargain. Of course, I would love everyone to be able to have a 1S. I finally have one, and I'm very grateful to have it. But isn't it nice that there's an option that is so affordable that sounds so close to a 1S, and that is the Victrola. So my recommendations here are, if you have the classic, and you prefer a more natural sound, you can definitely do better by finding an original or even a later issue on RCA Living Stereo, and the Victrola. The Victrola is an Indianapolis, did I say 4S, 1S? In case you're taking notes, Indianapolis 4S, 1S, and it's fabulous. So those are my thoughts on Slavonic Dances. I know this took a little while, but I wanted to make sure I got all the information in there. It's a fabulous recording. It's a fabulous performance. It's engaging music, and it's a record that you don't want to miss if you're collecting RCA Living Stereo. So I hope I've given you some guidelines on that. Until next time, I'm Scott for The Pressing Matters. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.